Hey Sun Space Sun, I'm Daisy Viktoria. I love ancient Egyptian culture and mythology. Ancient Egypt lasted longer than any other civilization we know today. To put it into perspective, the famous Cleopatra lived closer to our modern time right now than she did to the building of the Great Pyramids. The pre-dynastic period in Egypt is thought to have started sometime around 5000 BC, though Egypt was unified around 3100 BC. It was not until 332 BC that Egypt was conquered by Alexander the Great, and Egypt was finally surrendered by Cleopatra in 31 BC. That's a pretty long time. So throughout all of this time that ancient Egypt was a vast and amazing civilization, one of the garments that we see frequently worn is a sort of sheath dress. I think this is quintessential to what we think of as the image of ancient Egyptians. It's something I've experimented with a bit, and I would love to show you today how I make sort of the standard sheath dress with two slight variations. I do also have a PDF tutorial for this dress. If you think that would be beneficial to you, go find the link in the description. Here are a few sheath dresses in artwork. Specifically, we are going to be looking at this style of sheath dress today. Without a full extant sheath dress to examine, I'm kind of filling in some gaps here and extrapolating how I think this was constructed. These garments are very similar and have sort of filled in the gaps for me when I was coming up with my pattern. I'm making the easier or more straightforward version of this dress first, which is the one where the sort of sleeves, or I guess the extension of the bodice, goes a little bit more out onto the arm. I am using linen to create my sheath dresses. This was a very common material for ancient Egypt, and in fact it's what we find in a lot of extant garments and textiles. During this time, mostly we see clothing constructed from basic shapes, a lot of rectangles, some curvature, or some different lines, but it's not all that complicated. And I think that makes it really easy to make. It's also really easy to wear. Basically for these dresses, I'm using a sort of rectangular construction for the body of the dress, as well as two rectangles for the upper bodice portion. This is a pretty simple dress to make. Basically, I need to hem those bodice pieces. I decided to hem all of this by hand because I wanted to go for sort of a look that invoked ancient Egypt when they didn't have sewing machines. But obviously, if you want to sew this by machine, that's totally fine, and I would encourage it. The body of the dress is basically a rectangular tube. In this case, I did not put a slit in the back. It's basically just wide enough for me to walk in. I have put slits in the back of some before, which makes it a little bit easier to walk and take large steps. So just kind of think about that, try your dress on, and see if you need a slit. We frequently see dresses and tunics in art being worn with belts. This is a fairly simple fabric belt that I created, and I think it really completes the look. So next we're going to make the slightly more fitted version of this sheath dress. This is the same basic construction, I'm just tapering the pieces. So instead of being totally rectangular, now I'm tapering the body in at the top, so like the underbust area, I guess the waist. And because I'm doing that, now I need to put seams on the sides, whereas before I only had a seam in the back. I'm also tapering the bodice pieces, so whereas before we ended up with those bodice pieces kind of extending out over the shoulders, this time we're gonna angle the cut so that they don't really go out over the shoulders like the last one did. Once again, I'm hemming everything by hand. I did sew the major interior seams by machine. And once again, we are adding a fabric belt. So let's go see these dresses in action. I filmed this footage at a sand dunes park before moving. I was so excited to have access to a park with sand dunes that had sort of the landscape that I was looking for, and I really wanted to take advantage of it. The wind conditions here were rather difficult to work with. In fact, I found that some of my footage was shaky even though I had anchored down my tripod. It was also really sunny, but don't worry, I had a lot of sunblock on. These dresses were so fun to make, and they're so fun to wear. One thing I love about historical clothing is taking myself out of modern day and into another time and place. Being able to transport myself to a time that I have so much love to study is absolutely amazing, and I'm so excited to be wearing these dresses. I feel transported and like I'm part of something that's much bigger than myself, and I think that's so cool, and it's good for the soul. If you want the PDF tutorial, which will take you step by step through the construction of these dresses, I will link that for you in the description. All the jewelry I'm wearing here are pieces that I've created to try to get the look of ancient Egyptian jewelry. I do have more projects coming with Egyptian jewelry in the future because I would love to keep exploring this and try to see if I can get the methods down for some of the jewelry I've seen in museums. The kerchief that I'm wearing on my head is also one that I made, and it's based on a piece found in King Tut's tomb. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the ancient Egyptian sheath dress. If you make one of your own, or if you feel inspired to create something based on what you saw here, please tag me. I would love to see it. I'm Daisy Viktoria on all the social medias. My website is daisyviktoria.com, and a special thank you to my patrons who help me so much to continue creating content like this. I hope you have an absolutely magical day, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye!